accessible, it's easy to set up, and it's fun. But when the person asked them, well, what's your blog address? They said, well, I haven't got around to it yet, but it's one of the things I plan on getting around to. The other bit of conversation came from an online source in palnet.edu.au, where Darcy Moore, who's known to Eric through Twitter, and who is an acting principal in Australia, posed the question, why don't Australian school leaders blog? And in response to that, and Darcy will be pleased to note, later on in the presentation after Eric's finished talking, I've captured all of the Australian principals' blogs and have them available for you. So it seems to me that being able to read and express yourself in a digital world is an important part of being literate in the 21st century. And when you trawl around on the internet looking for school leaders or school administrators and blogging, you tend to come up with only about 3 main players in that field who are quite active: George Kouros, Michael Smith, and the most handsome out of all of them, Eric Sheninger. And Eric is the one who we've trawled for and levered into this conversation this afternoon. So it's curious to me as a school leader who does blog why Australian leaders don't seem to engage so much. It seems to me that there are 3 purposes, and Eric might have some thoughts in his presentation about this, but it seems to me that one purpose for me as a school leader to blog is to connect with my community, to communicate with them and to engage with them. It seems that another purpose for a blogging platform is one as a personal reflection tool for me to consider my work in a more private way. And the third role for blogging for a school leader seems to be something about this opportunity to contribute back to the profession by contributing commentary, contributing feedback to others. As a leader of a school, as opposed to a more broad system leader, my questions are always quite simple. Am I proud of my school? Do I have teachers doing things that need to be celebrated? Do I have students doing newsworthy things? And do I want to improve communication? So I would be all for ditching my school newsletter, certainly the paper copy, and forgetting about press releases and sending links or feeds to my blog to those sources. Our guest, Eric, he's going to talk a bit about himself in a few moments' time and paint a picture of his context, which we're fascinated by. We're hoping to find out what drives him, and certainly what drives him in his work, particularly in that online space. We need to note some of Eric's credentials because some of his awards have got more words in them than I have awards, so that's impressive. I'm going to guess what some of them mean. One, I think, stands for the National Association of Secondary School Principals, but I might be wrong, the NASSP Digital Principal Award winner in 2012. He was the PDK Emerging Leader Award recipient. The Learning Forward Excellence in Professional Practice. I love that one. Yes, Eric, you do have time to drink some water while I go through that title, but you were the award winner for that. Eric's also a Google certified teacher, and he is an Adobe education leader. He's been published in numerous publications, both in print and online, by himself and in collaboration with others. After Eric speaks in a moment, just keep in mind, we're going to have a Q&A later on in the session, share some of the Australian leaders' blogs. But for now, if I could pass over the camera and the talking to our special guest for this morning / this afternoon, Eric Sheninger.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It is, as you can see, my window back there, it is about 8:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Right now I'm in New Jersey. I'm about 10 minutes west of the George Washington Bridge, which is basically New York City. And when I'm done tonight, I'll be traveling 38 miles home to Staten Island, New York, where I live. So I work in New Jersey, I live in New York City, So it's very interesting where I live. My school is in a town New Milford, New Jersey. It is 2 square miles. In that 2 square miles, we have 4 schools, 2 elementary, 1 middle, 1 high school. My high school serves 650 students, grades 9 through 12. We're very diverse. Parents speak over 40 different languages at New Milford, and we're also blue collar. And I say that because we don't have lots of money. We are surrounded by some of the most affluent districts, not just in the state of New Jersey, but in the world. Not the world, but in the country. But one unique thing is, we pride ourselves on doing more with less. And one thing that we've taken a particular interest in is how we can use social media to do what we do better. And let me go to my first slide. So if you have any questions for me directly, my email is on my website, which is ericscheninger.com. I can also be found on Twitter, where my Twitter handle is @NHS_principal. That is my school, which I just talked about a few minutes ago. My school was built in 1928. My office is in an original part of the building. Pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I got a working fireplace, chandeliers. They just don't build them like they used to. But, within this, old school, we are consistently trying to find innovative ways to meet the needs of all of our learners. And for me, when I think about how I got to this point today, it really was because of social media. And I have this picture of me to my right, the Scholastic cover, because it was really my journey on Twitter that opened my eyes and mind to a world of possibilities. And that is really the only reason I am meeting with you here live this morning is because of social media. And I hope by the end of my webinar, you'll understand some, the why and the how of blogging and microblogging and what it can do for a myriad of administrative responsibilities. Before we can talk about blogging and Twitter and things like that, we have to understand that both are forms of social media. And more often than not, no matter where I go in the United States or who I talk to in the world, social media in the eyes of administrators is quite often construed as the enemy. It has no educational value. It is a time waster. It is all about meaningless socialization. And until we overcome this misconception that social media is the root of all evils, we are missing out at a world of possibilities on how we can improve, how we can have our thinking pushed, and how we can share all the great things that we are doing. Social media has become such a prevalent component of society all over the world. The only organization that seems to be resistant to effectively integrating social media tools is education. And hopefully that trend is going to change, because when I look at some of the things that we're doing here in New Milford and what my colleagues are doing all over the world, I would not know any of that if it were not for the lens that social media provides me to get a glimpse and get into the classrooms and schools of people all over the world, but also to let people into my school and my professional life. More often than not, social media, everyone thinks it's just Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, but it's really not. It is a variety, thousands of different tools that all have one thing in common. They are catalysts for conversation. If we truly want to improve professional practice and do what we do better, we need to engage in conversations about education, about leadership, about ways to increase student engagement, to enhance learning, and ultimately improve student achievement. And I think that social media provides a collective intelligence where we are no longer confined by geography, and we can learn from each other at times that are convenient for us. We can share those tried and proven ideas that work, and we can really be the pillars of support that many of us desperately need. I know that before social media, I felt that I was on an island, an isolated island, and schools were silos of information. Now, I have transitioned from a culture of hoarding ideas to active sharing and collaboration. And that really happens through a variety of social media tools where conversations can center around video, documents, events, music, wikis, pictures, blogs, SMS text, niche environments. It doesn't matter. But we have to understand that all social media does is provide us to meet the means to sort of do what we're doing now in different ways. We can share work, we can create work, we can critique work, we can be sounding boards, we can put our ideas out there for feedback, we can put our ideas out there for constructive criticism. We can brag per se, and there is nothing wrong with using social media to brag about our teachers and our learners. We should take a great deal of pride in the work that all stakeholders do. And now we have the means, as you see from this infographic, to get that message out in a variety of ways that are free and into the hands of our stakeholders. So when you look at social media, you look at the bottom, it really begins with you. You are the driving force. And if you find value in social media spaces, you will start to develop your own vision and, strategic plan for how you're going to use social media to accentuate a variety of administrative functions. But when you look at how everything is connected, community, people, sharing, content creation, media, you then have social networking tools and social media that bring it all together. So what must we learn to do? Before we can blog, before we can tweet, we must learn how to use digital tools to enhance school culture and improve stakeholder relations. We must understand how we can leverage the real-time web to grow professionally like never before. And we must also learn how technology can be effectively integrated in the classroom to increase student engagement and achievement. So, for example, if we want our students and our teachers to blog, we as leaders need to model those behaviors for those stakeholder groups. We can't just be empty suits that say, you know what, I heard blogging is great. I really want you to go and do it. But you want to know something? It doesn't resonate unless we are the ones rolling up our sleeves and modeling what a blog should look like, what the messages should convey, what voices and perspectives we should share. Oops. So when you look at social media as being a multidimensional tool, and I have to give credit, this image was developed by Alec Kuros. Mark had mentioned his brother George a few minutes ago, but Alec is a professor in Regina, Canada, and he came up with this networked teacher illustration. The most important aspect when looking at this diagram is that you, as the lead learner, the professional leader, are at the center. And it's a two-way flow of information where you can create, discuss, you can become involved, but you can also promote and measure. When you look at all of these social media tools and traditional outlets of information, when you utilize a more modern approach to growth and professional leadership, you become that center, you're calling the shots, and you're really driven by intrinsic motivation to learn, to grow, to share, and that two-way flow really enhances our ability to do what we do better. So again, that picture image is from Al Curl. So if you Google him, it'll come up right away. But again, as leaders, I think we want our teachers, our students creating, discussing, involved. But we need to be the ones that promote all of the amazing things that are going on in our schools. And we also should be aware of how we can measure the impact that those communications are having. I look at it this way. If I reach just one more person through a blog or a tweet, that's one person that I would not potentially be reaching with traditional media. We need to understand that we need to meet our stakeholders where they are at. They are not reading snail mail. They are not reading email. They're on Facebook. They're on Twitter. They're using apps such as Zeit, Flipboard, and Pulse to access blogs and other sources of real-time information. So if we go to them, if we create our blogs and we send our tweets and we post that on other sites such as Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, we are taking our stakeholders, pointing them in the direction to where we truly want them to be. That is what's important. So I see a question in there, so I guess I'm just going to assume I'm going to jump in and answer that. Yes, my teachers, they read my blogs, they guest post on my blog, my students guest post, my students and teachers have their own blogs. And again, if I'm going to model the behaviors that I want to see, I've got to be commenting on their blogs, and I do that. So for us, everyone is reading our blogs, all different stakeholders, students, parents, teachers, grandparents, business leaders, you name it. The whole idea, though, is we have created a culture here in Milford that places a strong emphasis on the use of social media as a professional tool for learning and professional growth and development and stakeholder relations. So, a great example of a student blog is our students go on a Holocaust study tour every year to Europe. They go to Germany, Czech Republic, and Poland over 10 days. My teacher, after reading my blog and me working with her, developed a blog for this trip. They blog every single day they're in Europe. They reflect on one of the most difficult times in human history. They integrate pictures, videos, reflections. It is the ultimate, most transparent learning tool you could have. We are learning right alongside of them, and we are here in New Jersey, and they're in Europe. In terms of limits with blogging, I think there's limits with anything. And you really need to look at it as, are we teaching students how to use blogs and other social media tools in a digitally responsible fashion? Our ultimate goal as educators is to have students use real-world tools to solve real-world problems. Blogs are a real-world, journalistic, reflective, public relations tool, however you want to look at it, depending on your respective position. So I think that, when we model appropriate behavior and we work with students to craft a message that is directly correlated to a learning goal, we really have nothing to worry about in terms of students. Our students and teachers here at New Milford are using basically every social media tool you can think of, with blogs being one of the primary tools. And we have not had any issues because a blog is just like a pad of paper. It's just writing on a word processor. It's just in a different environment. And that environment is the real world. It's the internet. It can be looked at, viewed, picked at from anybody that has access to it. So, if anything, our students and teachers are in a better position to place students on a path to success because we're using these real-world tools. Excuse me. So, if I were to define a blog, they're really incredible sources of information that allow educators to reflect, share opinions, and discuss various topics. For me, as a leader, it is the ultimate tool to discover best practices, examples of innovation, and learn from professional experiences of both novice educators and veterans. I feel that the best conduit for my professional learning is from the actual practitioners that walk in my shoes every day. I follow blogs like George Couros from Canada, Patrick Larkin from Massachusetts, Jimmy Casas from Iowa, and I can just go on and on. These are educational administrators that deal with the same issues I'm dealing with in New Jersey. Darcy Moore from Australia, another administrator. But, we don't need to reinvent the wheel anymore. And when you utilize a blog, you're basically just sharing sound, proven best practices that have worked for you. Or you're reflecting on topics such as educational technology, reform, and things like that. So, it really creates such a transparent form of leadership where all of our stakeholders, all of our colleagues can share from this collective knowledge that we are creating. Now, why would you want a blog? I just rambled for a little bit, but, the real nuts and bolts of it is right here. These 6 reasons are why I blog, and I think they are more or less the reasons why other administrators across the world blog. And that's to enhance communications, improve public relations, create a brand presence, grow professionally, and then when you look at it as an administrator, why do I want my students and teachers blogging? I think that is a student engagement and learning piece. And you can also look at it as a form of opportunity. As Mark said before, newsletters, snail mail, that's not really an effective means to communicate anymore. People want real-time information, and they want to be able to, if they choose, interact, push back, commend your ideas. Blogs do all of that. And, you can communicate basic information, athletic scores, staff achievements, student accomplishments. You could blog about building level projects, construction, things like that. So you can really keep people in the know through a blog. A blog does not have to be paragraphs and paragraphs of information. It could be a picture. It could be a video. It could be 3 sentences. It's what you want it to be. What do you want to communicate? how do you want to communicate it? Once you then start communicating information, it then turns into the ultimate public relations tool. You now have the power to tell your story when it is convenient for you. You no longer have to rely on the media, who unfortunately don't always paint the brightest picture of what really happens in schools. You can generate your own press releases. You, in a sense, become your New York Times, your NBC, whatever you want to be. You become the storyteller in chief. If this is not a compelling reason to blog, I don't know what is. Here's a fact. If you don't tell your story, someone else will. When someone else tells your story, 9 out of 10 times, it is not going to be the story that you want told. It's not going to be an accurate depiction of what truly goes on in your buildings. So, you know what? We now are at a time where we can tell our story and really instill a greater sense of pride in what we do within our buildings. When you start, using blogs and other social media tools to communicate, and as far as public relations, you also begin to establish a brand presence. In all my spaces, you'll see the pillars of New Milford. You'll see the Knights, the New Milford name, our school colors. And we use social media and blogs to establish a positive brand presence. What does it mean to be a student at New Milford High School? It's about student achievement, innovation, choice, increasing acceptances to four-year colleges, increasing AP scores by 1 year over like 26% over the course of a year. It is everything positive, and when you interweave them all together, you establish a positive brand presence. Blogs can be the ultimate tool to learn like never before. You can learn from practitioners like me to experts in education like Diane Ravitch, Robert Marzano, Todd Whitaker. You can just read their blogs, you could read their tweets, and gain insight like never before. We really are at a point in time where we can access any information at any time from anywhere that we choose, that we find valuable. I mentioned before how blogs can be used to increase student engagement and learning. There is no better real-world tool than to allow students to express their opinions, answer questions, engage in debates on a blog platform where the authentic audience is, in a sense, the whole world. And that really is a real-world application, because when you're in the real world, people are going to have access to your ideas, your information, and to get that global perspective, I think it's very, very important. And finally, opportunity. What we have found here at New Milford is when we put together this social media strategy, as you see with these 6 points, and you share all the great things, great ideas travel fast, people start to take notice of the great work that you're doing. And when you consistently craft a positive message focused on these 6 areas, people want to give you stuff. They want to become a part of your story. They want to help you tell your story. Because of blogs, I've had a teacher flown out to Israel for a week to form a partnership with a high school there. We've been given tens of thousands of dollars worth of technology for free. My students have been able to take unbelievable field trips to Google's offices in New York City, and they were able to provide feedback on the Chromebook long before they were even readily available to schools. It's just one thing after another. MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, just did a case study on us. All of this can be directly correlated to social media and blogs. So again, communicate, tell your story, establish a brand presence, and then you start crafting this message that, everyone gets so excited that they want to be a part of it.
Great. Eric, just before you go on, grab a sip of water, have a scroll down maybe the text chat box, and I'll just talk for a couple of moments to allow you just to moisten your golden-like vocal cords and have a quick look at the things that people are picking up and commenting about. Certainly the message that you've made clear to us so far is around using blogging platforms to tell your compelling story, and I think that's really important, and I know that would resonate with a lot of the people here and viewing the recording. I think the other big part that's coming through quite clearly is around the role of a blogging platform, whatever it may be that people choose and use, to, in a sense, to deprivatise professional thinking and professional practice. And in deprivatising it, in taking it out of the minds of administrators and leaders within particular schools, it opens up a world of possibilities to think differently, to think divergently, to knowledge construct, to generate shared solutions to shared problems with colleagues wherever and also whenever they may be, as we're doing now. You helped me with one little bit which was useful. I was delivering a keynote the other week and somebody posted a comment which was, just because you share it, it doesn't mean it's learning. And the way that you've helped me out with that, Eric, is I think the confusion with the comment from that person was that social media and learning with social media are actually two kind of interdependent things, and it depends on the purpose of your engagement. So if the purpose of the engagement is about promotion or communication, or it's about collaboration, or it's about whatever it may be out of the 6 points, then you choose and use the tool to deliver that. If the purpose is about learning, then you're going to choose and use the tool that is very much focused on knowledge construction and collaboration with some sort of shared outcome. So that was useful for me, thank you. Let's get your thoughts quickly on any comments in the commentary box, and then feel free to move on. Thanks.
Well, I see Joe's comment about, and I think it's pretty accurate. You do have to develop an approach to blogging, tweeting, or whatever social media engagement you're going to use. And time is key. And I'm going to give you a quote that I sort of came up with. And this sums up my experience and engagement in social media spaces. Is I don't find the time to learn and get better through social media. I make the time. And I think that's pretty important is I find extreme value in what social media has done for my school and for me as a leader. So I have to make the time, and consistency is key. If you want your stakeholders to embrace blogging and Twitter and other social media tools, you need to be a leader, comes again back to modeling, very consistent with how you utilize it. Now, with us, I blog once a week. That's my minimum. That's what I set. I'll tweet probably too much during the course of the day, but I'm consistent, and I have a consistent message, which is leadership. I don't, veer off into the personal world because that's what I can do on Facebook. So, that's really what you want to focus on. But, for us, the blog, especially my blog and other social media tools, have really instilled a greater sense of pride in the work that we're doing here, because now we can get our message out. It also, from a learning perspective, blogs are one component of a personal learning network, which I'm going to talk for about in a few minutes. But to me, I've learned more from social media tools, from this, the human element globally through my PLN than I have from any professional development I've ever been a part of. And this image right here that I have on my slides shows a map of my blog. And when I tell you good ideas travel fast, I was not a blogger. I had no idea what I was doing. And I just talked about my school, my students, my ideas. And as you can see, people all over the world have read my blog, which is flattering, but my map is no different than any other bloggers. And this is how we stay connected. We provide support to each other. We provide that needed feedback. So it's very, very important. You know, when you decide to blog, there's a variety of platforms that you can choose. I use Blogger. A lot of my friends use WordPress. Some people use TypePad. The platform is not as important as your message. And what do you want your message to be? It could be just about your school. It could be about educational leadership. It could be, for me, it's about everything. It's about my school, it's about leadership, but I just use the platform that, you know, I like Blogger because it plays nice and syncs with all my other Google tools. But WordPress provides a much more aesthetically appealing platform. So those are some areas where you can get started. Now, what are some specific ways in which a blog could be used? It could be used as a newsletter. It could be used to showcase student or school achievements, staff innovations. It could be a leadership reflection. What I love doing on my blog is guest posts. And I will open it up to any of you that are here live now or watching this later. You know, because I've had the opportunity to build up my network, I feel that it's my duty to help other people get started and spread their ideas. I got started through people asking me to guest post on their blogs. That is how I got started. That's how I built up my confidence. I have student guest posts on my blog, my staff, friends, colleagues. So if you ever want to get placed for blogging, please just email me, and I'd be more than happy to allow you to use, you know, my blog platform with full credit to you and your ideas to share your message and things like that. You know, I think it's very important when it comes to blogging to focus on the basics, even as you know, apparent some of these might seem. Develop a catchy title, because we want people to read it outside of your local community. A catchy title helps. Include a picture that aligns to the theme, and make sure if you include the picture, you give due credit to anyone or anything where you got the picture from. Insert hyperlinks to support a point or provide additional resources. I love hyperlinking back to other posts I've written about my school, our school's Facebook page, my teacher's website, anything that can help strengthen your post. As I mentioned before, posts can be images, text, video, or any combination. And consistency is the key, especially, you know, with blogging and getting that message across. You know, when you start to blog and use other social media tools, you know, blogging can be one component of your own personal or professional learning network, whatever you want it to be. This type of informal learning is so powerful because, again, you are at the center of this learning. Learning should never stop. And what better way than to learn when it's convenient and consistent for us to access. So whether it be blogs, Twitter, Google+, Facebook, Pinterest, digital discussion forums, all those forms of social media are components of your personal learning network. And as you can see from this diagram, a personal learning network provides you with invaluable information and support, problem solving, knowledge, meeting like-minded people, sharing, self-directed learning, friendships, and informal learning. For me, a lot of the ideas that I've implemented here in Milford High School, I've gotten ideas or thoughts from educators out there all over the world. And when I deliver keynotes and talks, this picture really sums up my behavior or my time in social media spaces. If you can see in this, that's me at the bottom. And I use social media tools, blogs being one of them, to connect me with the smart people. I don't consider myself smart. I'm resourceful. And by being resourceful, I now know how I can access the people that can help me do what I do better. And that's the people like you. You don't have to have a blog. It has to be on some sort of social media so that me as a principal in New Jersey can connect, learn from, and learn with you. That is probably the most important aspect of blogging and tweets and all that stuff is just contacting the right people. So that is sort of my thing with blogging. Twitter is another form of blogging. It's called microblogging because you can do it in 140 characters. I love Twitter because it's brief, to the point, and it can the information travels, it flows through the Twitterverse, and I can pull from here, I can pull from there, take ideas, reflect on them, and help me to do what I do better. So at this time, I will entertain any questions or comments you have.
Great. Thanks for that, Eric. I'm still remaining amused by that graphic on that previous slide, this one here, where, I looked at that and I thought, my goodness, that's me as well. So that's great. You put that up. I've jotted that down. I can describe myself next time as being a resourceful person. I think that's a really, really neat thing to be, because essentially it's suggesting that you're a chooser and user of the tools and the information that you need to do what you need to do, as you've said, which is very neat. I've just got a couple of questions, Eric, that have sort of, there'll be some up in the text chat box, and invite you to have a look through those as well. The one that I've jotted down, and it's probably a little bit of a pragmatic one as you as school administrator, and it's to do with teacher. I can pronounce it. It's my accent. Teachable moments with digital citizenship. One of the things that I've always thought about blogging with students that is a good thing is that it creates opportunities. At times they seem unwelcome, but creates opportunities for micro lessons around digital citizenship, as opposed to the other version, which is let's teach digital citizenship and make them safe before they do stuff. So I guess I'd just like some commentary. We're getting a bit of feedback from someone's microphone, I think. Anyway, I would mind a little bit of commentary around how you create that culture at your school, how you induct new students into the model of digital citizenship that you're promoting, and new staff coming in too. Do you mind commenting on that for us?
Yep. First of all, I'll talk about the students. I think, at least in my country, schools are failing students in terms of educating them on digital responsibility and citizenship. Too often, we are quick to reprimand students for online conduct, but we in schools are not teaching them on how they can use these tools for learning and productivity. So, again, I talk a great deal about modeling. We do an education program for every single one of our students that focuses on the digital citizenship responsibility, and producing a positive digital footprint. We first talk about cyberbullying, and then we talk about the whole responsibility piece when you're posting and responding to content. I am the one that gives that presentation to every single one of my students. We do it in a large group format. I do it by grade level, and I give examples. I make my students Google themselves. I talk to them about how their interactions, behaviors online can negatively impact their ability to get to college or get a job. I provide them examples of how I can take pictures off of their Facebook pages and do anything I want with them. So it's sort of like an eye-opening experience for them. Now, on the other hand, in addition to my proactive talks, my teachers are working with them and aligning specific learning goals and objectives to the use of social media-based tools for students to create artifacts of learning to demonstrate conceptual mastery. So that is really our approach with our students. With teachers, it is one of my key questions that I ask during the interview process. I ask them, what is your knowledge of Web 2.0 tools? Give me some examples of how you've effectively integrated them in the teaching and learning process. And I have them walk through it. So it's sort of an expectation when I hire. But here in New Milford, we don't have any technology mandates. We don't look for buy-in. We work towards embracement of technology as a tool. Our golden rule is pedagogy first, technology second if appropriate. And those teachers that want to do this, they get the support, the PD, the cheerleading, everything they need to be successful.
So, Eric, just building on that, and I'm conscious of the people that will be listening to the recording, and I know this question would come up in Australia at the moment. It comes up in every kind of venue where we start to talk about leveraging the advantages of Web 2.0 or social media tools for education. Invariably, the conversation goes away from pedagogy, so we recognise that's important, but it goes to that pragmatic side, and people would want to know, is your school a bring your own device or a bring your own other device school? Is it a one-to-one school where the school provides the technology? Just tell us briefly a little bit about that, the technological element within your school.
We're bring your own device. Again, I would love to go one-to-one. We just don't have the money. Most of my students, almost all of our students, have some sort of device, so they're bringing it in. They're given the autonomy to use it, to take notes, to conduct research, to do things like that. I provide the training to my staff. We create an equitable environment through cooperative learning in the case that our students don't have a device. We routinely host visitations to our school from other schools in the region to see what we are doing here. And again, we look at technology as a tool. It's a tool that students can use to enhance their learning, for research, and to enhance productivity. Just like pencils and papers are a type of technological tool from way back when, I'm not going to tell my students that they can't use the tools of their generation for learning. Because again, we are trying to create a culture that is in line with the real world. The real world is people now using this to take pictures and notes, audio notes, taking their notes, and looking up facts and things like that. So that's sort of like our environment here. We basically every social media site is unblocked. The only things that are blocked for students are Facebook and YouTube. Everything else is open. Again, and we haven't. The sky has not come falling down. We're not experiencing issues because again, we have spent a great deal of time creating a culture that is embraced by the staff, and that students understand what the expectations are for appropriate conduct.
Great, thanks for that. And it's certainly the case in many Australian schools is at the moment that more dollars worth of technology and computing power is still kept locked in the teacher's drawer or in bags turned off than what the students have access to in the course of their learning. So it's what I knew there'd be some interesting, there'll be people interested in hearing your response to that. Eric, just have a quick wander through the text chat box for a moment, won't you? While what I'll do is just share something with everybody, and then we'll come back to you and get any sort of thoughts and comments around what's in the commentary box, and then we'll move towards a wrap-up, okay? One of the things, everybody, that I said I would attempt bravely to coordinate was a blog roll of Australian school principals who blog, knowing that a lot of teachers are blogging, and I intentionally called this an Australian education leadership blog roll, curriculum coordinators, assistant principals, and so on, just out of curiosity. A bit like Eric, I'm a member of a lot of social media groups to do with teaching and administration and leadership and so on. But I thought this would be curious. What is fascinating, with pushing out through all sorts of networks, I've only been able to track down 12. So Shannon has popped up in the text chat box, the shared Google spreadsheet, where those 12 currently are, and eventually I'll find a home for them at palnet.edu.au. But it was an interesting activity, and that came from Darcy's comment, why don't Australian school leaders blog? And then led to our webinar as well today with Eric, which was quite fascinating. Let's pop back to you now, Eric.
Okay, I see a question from Karen. What are you seeing as evidence of building respect for the educational leadership profession through pride? I think what we're seeing, Karen, is more and more connected administrators are getting seats at the table with politicians and policymakers because their blogs and their tweets have resonated. There's a uniform message about sort of our wanting to be a part of educational reform in our country. The voices are not as prevalent as I'd like them to be, but in New Jersey, for example, 4 of my colleagues were able to go to breakfast with Governor Chris Christie, and that was all happened because of social media. And what we're seeing now is more and more leaders are pushing back against reform efforts, and our voices are finally starting to be heard. So it really goes back to one of my points before about social media giving us a voice to, express our opinions and stances on things. And, even from an educational leadership perspective, I just finished my 3rd book, and I got solicited to write a book on Twitter. Someone wrote me on Twitter and said, you want to write a book? I didn't meet my co-authors and the book was published. I've now finished my 3rd book. Countless other administrators here in the States have been asked to write books that are educational leaders, all because of their interactions in online spaces. And a lot of it has happened through their thoughtful and diligent blog posts. So I think it's a growing trend here in the United States, but I'd like to see it hopefully a little bit more. So Joe wrote, interested in how the proactive work in your school and using cyberspace is working. Your school, I can honestly say, I can't remember the last time I dealt with a cyberbullying issue. We are not only educating our students on this issue, but we are in the spaces that they are in, and they know it. And in the few cases where there were issues, we were able to be extremely proactive, address it with the students and the parents in ways that resulted in a positive outcome for both parties. So again, the educational component and being in those spaces have really helped my school. I can't say that the same for other schools where it is a major problem because the leaders, the teachers, they're not blogging, they're not tweeting, they don't know what to look for, and they're not modeling productive behavior. So I think I might have answered all the questions. I don't know if I did not. Put it in the text.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Eric. I really like that that bit of commentary just then, just reminding us that because yourself and your leaders and staff are in those spaces and places, not only do you know what's going on, not only are you taking affirmative action, if you like, in creating a positive digital footprint to begin with, but in doing that, your teachers and leaders are becoming skilled up and proficient to understand the possibilities of online spaces and places to connect and collaborate. So it's adding value, but it's also adding, if you like, a preventative measure which minimises possibly the likelihood of there being some, negative activity that, may happen. And so good commentary there. We'll just move along. I'm aware of Eric's impending bedtime and our impending work day. And we're very envious about that, Eric, and appreciative of your time. In doing an attempt to wrap up here, certainly humans are social, and we always have been, and learning is a social activity. Sharing stories is as old as time. And what we're seeing emerging now through online platforms is an opportunity for shared solutions to be generated for the shared challenges of school leaders, regardless of place and space and time, as I've mentioned. We know that school leaders lead learning in incredibly complicated times, and we know that time itself, as Eric has said, is the resource that is most finite and scarce. Blogging may well be the simple professional growth activity that people choose to engage in to refresh, to rejuvenate, and also to regenerate their professional capacity. It's a choice that leaders can make each and every day. A way, if you like, of linking writing, reading, connecting of information, and learning together. So what I would like to do is a couple of things. One is to draw your attention to our next incredible webinar, which is next Wednesday. I'll be hosting it from Malaysia, where I'm attending a panel on social media in education, ironically. We're going to be running a webinar to do with learning space design and how that fits with 21st century learners, which will be incredible with some great speakers across Australia. The other thing to note is that in our closing off survey today, Shannon Nagiri from the control deck has placed an incredibly appropriate and entertaining cartoon connected completely to the topic that Eric has so eloquently covered in this morning / this afternoon's webinar. So you've been alerted to that. What I would like to do is to thank the participants for their active commentary in the text chat box across this webinar on Blog, a leader's perspective, and very much I'd like to thank Milford, is it Milford Senior School? Let's call it Milford High School. Would like to thank Eric very much for his time at the end of a long and busy day, and as school leaders we know there's no such thing as an easy day at school. So we thank you very much for your time this evening. Eric, any final words?
I'm looking forward to that. I've been up since 4:30 in the morning, so I'm tired. But thank you, everyone. I mean, your questions were spot on. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I have seen just a dramatic impact on professional practice. And all it's taken is an open mind, people pushing me in the right direction, support, and the rest seems to just fall into place.
Great. Well, Eric, again, we thank you for inviting us into the principal's office this afternoon, and it feels like we've got away with it reasonably lightly. We trust you have a safe trip home and a good night's sleep. participants, thank you again. Please take the time to complete the very simple survey and enjoy the amusements provided by Shannon McGeary. Good morning, good night, and goodbye.